Everyone, this is Ross. I want to give you guys like a final tomato update, a final recap of the season, talk to you guys about what worked, what didn't work, the benefits of doing it like this. This is kind of just like a very simple vertical tomato system that we're doing outside. And normally you do this inside of a greenhouse, at least that's what a lot of commercial growers are doing these days, is that they trellis up a single stem tomato vine and you keep it to single stem. You have to do the pruning where you come in here and you really tidy up the bottom of the plants. See, as we've done that, as the tomatoes fruit and as these leaves kind of decay off a little bit, you cut them out. And it cleans up the bottom of the plants. It has nice airflow, good disease resistance, or I should say it's better for disease. And then we're also getting pretty good production out of a really small area by tying them up to these 10-foot tall poles, and then a certain height to kind of compensate, because I don't have that system in the greenhouse a lot of people use where they kind of have a wire and then they bend the tomatoes down on a slant so that they can get to higher heights, or I should say longer lengths. That's still at the same height. But what I'll do is I'll just come in here, and if I can't reach this any further, I'll tie it up as high as I can, and then I'll just let it branch out. And then that's the end of the season. By the time it branches out, puts out its last flower clusters, and then sets its last fruit, pretty much all that will then ripen by today, by frost. There's still some green tomatoes on the vines. You know, this is a black cherry here, and you can see some of these are still green. We do have some more beefsteak style tomatoes right here that are still green, but you know, I've been harvesting, you know, like once a week I'll come in here and clean all these up, get all the tomatoes out of here that need to be harvested. These are orange banana tomatoes, and they're still pumping out tomatoes. We have an Italian sauce tomato down here that's still doing the same thing. You know, we're 3 days away from frost, and a lot of people haven't had tomatoes for months in this area, you know, because of disease, because you can see it up here, these branches, these leaves, they start looking pretty nasty towards the end of the season. That's because I really let them just do their own thing, and that airflow is no longer there. It's still very humid out. It still rains a lot. As the tomatoes just get older, they kind of just don't do very well here in this climate. So a lot of people struggle with their tomatoes at a certain point in the season. And what they end up doing is they have to succession plant, and it's just not necessary. It's just a lot of work. And in fact, by doing it like this, you're not only having better disease resistance, but you're having better yields. You're more productive this way. By training them up as single stem plants, I'm able to fit in an area here. Let's say this is 3 foot by 3 foot right here. I can fit 1 tomato plant in there, you know, with proper spacing. But if I do it vertically, I can fit 9. I can fit them 1 square foot per tomato plant. And a 3 foot by 3 foot space, that's 9 plants, or 1 tomato plant that I let kind of bush out and do crazy things and get all kinds of disease and all kinds of issues. This is just it's such a better way, guys, especially here in this climate, somewhere that's very humid. We have issues with disease on our tomatoes. So I will say though that there's a few downsides, at least at the beginning of the season. We had started, and you'll notice that some of these tomato plants, like this one here, is just like, what happened, right? And we also have some in this little section here. If you go back and see our other videos, we had them all filled in. Like this whole entire row was filled in. These 2 spots were filled in. Simply due to the fact that I started my tomato plants too soon indoors. And a lot of you guys had warned me and said, Ross, you're starting them too soon. You're gonna have too big of plants when you transplant them out. They're gonna go through crazy transplant shock and yada yada yada. And they were right. They did. They actually went through somewhat of a transplant shock, but the biggest shocker of the whole thing was that they got attacked by aphids because they were weaker plants when you transplanted them out. They were such big plants that didn't go in nearly as easy. When you transplant in these different vegetable crops and annuals, you really want them going in at smaller sizes. You'll have less issues with pests. they really acclimate themselves better that way versus, you know, let's say a seedling versus something that we transplanted in. They just have less pest pressure. And I had a lot of aphids this year on my tomatoes as a result, and the aphids clobbered these tomatoes. I had thought by leaving the aphids on, I would get an influx of ladybugs, and that never happened. So instead of spraying them, I could have saved them. I could have had even better yields and better results than I have now. Yeah, I just let them be. And as a result, I can't believe it, but some human intervention actually would have helped nature probably. So yeah, we lost some of the plants, and that was probably the big downside of the whole thing. I did get to try a crap ton of varieties this year as well. We tried close to, I think we had 18, yeah, we had 18 tomato plants to start, because I had 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows, or 6 in a row, and I had 3 rows. So a total of 18 tomato plants, not all 18 varieties, but certainly a large number. And I came to the conclusion that it's really difficult to beat a pink Brandywine. And my pink Brandywine is somewhere down here. That's actually what this is right here, pink Brandywine. And on the pink Brandywine, it seems to be that we have a tomato here. I'm not sure, maybe this is, actually, yeah, this is on the next one. This is a green giant. You can see down there, but nonetheless, pink Brandywine is my favorite beefsteak by far. And what I ended up doing is using the other beefsteaks in addition to these paste tomatoes for sauce. And that's what I did every week. I came out here, I collected the tomatoes, did a nice harvest, and then made sauce. And I'll tell you what, even a big beefsteak tomato, if you get all that water out of it, you get all those seeds out of there, it still makes really flavorful, great sauce. And nothing compared to that pink Brandywine. In terms of eating it fresh, just straight tomato, or slicing it and having it on sandwiches, nothing comes close in my opinion. At least in this climate. I'm sure it's different depending on where you guys live. I'm trying to find something better than Brandywine. So if anyone has any suggestions and has actually had a really good Brandywine before, let me know. But so far, I'm pretty dead set on just growing next year a Brandywine, or a couple Brandywines. This black cherry here, this was the best cherry tomato of the year for very obvious reasons. First off, it produces a pretty big cherry tomato. This one's pretty small, but it's a really good size to it. It grows really well, it produces really well, but when I eat this, it almost feels like I'm eating a beefsteak. A smaller version, a very meatier cherry tomato. And that's not something you find very often at all with cherry tomatoes. They have the wrong texture. And you know what? Maybe that's a good thing, because it's sort of its own animal that way. But personally, I think black cherry is just far superior for texture reasons. Maybe not flavor, maybe not the sugar content, but it has that perfect texture. And it really is like eating a beefsteak in a smaller form. Something that's real meaty. And then I decided, you know what, next year we're not going to grow anything but the pink Brandywine and the black cherry, unless I can find better replacements. But we are going to grow in mass quantities this orange banana tomato. This thing produces the most flavorful sauce. I read it in Amy Goldman's book. This is how I heard about this one. And she says that it's hard to believe, but an orange tomato, she says, makes the best sauce. And it's true. I think it really does make these sauces that I've been making this year very, very flavorful. And even my buddy Joe, who gave me these tomatoes back here, his amazing heart tomato, and this other one here, I'm blanking on the names on some of these. It's hard to learn. Let's see if I can find one. Alpaca I tried as well. That is a complete waste of time here, because it gets a lot of, trying to find the tag for you guys here of this Italian tomato from Joe. The Cure tomato and the heart tomato. Both of them are beautiful, big paste tomatoes and somewhat productive, but I had a lot less issues with these orange bananas, and the flavor that this produces is great. You know, the alpaca got the blossom end rot quite a bit, and it's in the same soil. It's not a nutrient deficiency here. I've really well amended this bed for years. There's tons of magnesium, tons of calcium in here. All the things that would hopefully prevent blossom end rot is in this soil. I've been growing tomatoes here for years, and it's just the one tomato I've had issues with. In terms of Joe's tomatoes compared to the alpaca, I've just had less issues like splitting. Sometimes these tomatoes can get a little bit of issues here at the top. You can see that, where they get these little marks, and I found a lot of these, even though they looked pretty good on the outside, opening them up on the inside, it's actually moldy. Sometimes on the bottom, I've seen holes in the bottom. On one of other Joe's tomatoes, I can't remember which one it was exactly, but there's a severe entry point for something to get in there, and it just ruins them, as good as they may be. You know, and I need to really do some testing with Joe's to say, all right, well, in terms of Joe's tomatoes, are they really even more flavorful than the orange banana? I can't really say for sure, but I will say that every time I made sauce, I had a large quantity of orange banana, and you can almost taste that orange banana character in the sauce, and it really made everything so much better. Yeah, so that's kind of, guys, the update to the season, in that we had a pretty good start to the season, even though we had a lot of aphids. We got them out pretty early, and they actually grew quite well, and I actually like the fact that they had a big root system to them. But they didn't do so well in the middle part of the season. Some of them, because of the aphids. We did get to taste all of them, which was good. And then, yeah, at the end of the season, we just kept going, kept chugging along. There is a portion of the season, I will mention, that sometime in like July and maybe in August, the tomatoes stop ripening. Actually, they don't stop ripening, they stop setting their fruit. So then there's a portion later in the season for about 2 to 3 weeks, because it's so hot in July and August. When the temperatures are really, really hot, these flowers, you can see there's still aphids on here. That's actually crazy. There's still aphids on this guy. But these flowers will stop setting. And if they stop setting, there's a portion later in the season where I just don't have many tomatoes at all. So for the most part, the production was pretty solid throughout the entire year, especially when I had, like, you know, some late varieties like the Black Beauty tomato from Wild Boar Farms. By the way, that Black Beauty tomato, guys, here it is right here. Here's the tag. This tomato is incredibly good. It honestly tastes like there's fennel, black licorice flavor in the tomato. It really has a nice flavor to it. But you know what? The pink Brandywine, I think, is still king, and I can always get fennel. I can always add some fennel seeds to my tomato. I don't need to come in there and grow a tomato that tastes like fennel. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Interesting flavor. Anyway, yeah, well, thank you guys for watching this one. All right, that's pretty much the little recap here. I strongly recommend you guys do something like this. If you don't want to get these poles, they do pretty well, but it is annoying to kind of have to tie them up to each individual pole. You know, you may benefit from like string and hanging something over the top, and then dangling string down from some kind of pergola or arbor type thing. But anyway, yeah, thank you guys for watching this one. We'll talk to you soon, all right? And we'll see you for tomorrow's video, and see you next year for the tomato videos. Take care, everyone.